after that video I made as of yesterday, I want to make a setup farming guide or whatever you want to call it for today's video. So D1 and D3 are going to be the hot topics for this video because we're going to farm these maps a lot, right? So I'll start with a simple D1 setup. So the mobs here are going to be level 91 to 93. Once you get this to safe mode, it becomes a lot easier, a lot easier compared to what you would normally see. So this is a very easy requirement. It requires firepower and evasion. Very simple things. All you need is basically one battleship and 2 destroyers. So if you have like say 105, 100, maybe 100 could work too, depending on the type of destroyer you use, like Tashkent, Suzuki, Udachi, Shimakaze, anyone that's like a very powerful solo destroyer could be very good here at level 100. Otherwise, if you're not that confident with that destroyer you're using and it is on safe mode, 105 should be more than enough for what you're using. So after that, so you put one battleship and you have 2 destroyers. After that, it's just about cutting your costs. So I recommend a lot of people, especially those that are new to the game and are getting there or whatever, pick some ships you want to level up. In this case, let's say I'm doing Soryumeta, right? I want to level up Soryumeta. So this is going to be my cost right here. It's not the most cheapest one or whatever, but it is pretty cheap for the most part. It's 24 oil. 24 oil for, let's say, like, was it 5 mob clears and then the boss. So say like you're gonna get a sizable amount of oil here. I'd say I think it's about 24 times 5, which is like 120, and then you do something right here. You can do like 140 or less. Obviously, that's you can be way more. You can be cheaper than that if you want to, but since it is an EXP map and there is no oil cap as of right now, whether they're adding this into a future event or not, who knows? I think they are though. Just make sure your mob fleet is always a 1-1 setup and your boss fleet is as minimal as possible. But if you care more about EXP though, then just do like 2-1 and you should be okay. So in this case right here, you can definitely cut prices here. Light carriers, there's not that many light carriers. I wouldn't recommend any of these. So that's why I recommend if you guys do farm D1, make sure the bottom one would be your mob setup, because a carrier is much easier to work with than a destroyer for the most part. But if you're confident, let's say you want to use like a ranger or something, then light carrier definitely is the cheaper way to farm, because light carriers obviously cost less oil compared to a carrier. So you have limited selection though, but if you can do the light carrier for the mob fleet with the destroyer, that works out way better compared to doing the carrier and destroyer setup. So aim for at least this one minimum. Do the 1-1 set with the carrier and destroyer, and then do either destroy a random light carrier with a battleship and another destroyer, and you're good to go. It's very cheap. I'll probably put the oils markings somewhere on the board. You can cut costs down if you like, but for the most part, it's good to go. Firepower evasion is always an easy requirement to fill up. It's mostly about destroyers, and it's mostly about battleships, so very easy there. And here we have D3. For D3, it's going to be a little bit more complicated because the requirements for firepower and evasion are a lot higher, so it's going to be a little bit more difficult. This time around, I recommend doing a carrier setup with the destroyer or heavy cruiser, preferably destroyer, because they're a lot cheaper, so it'll be easier for you. But remember that the mobs here are going to be level 103, so it may be a little bit difficult for you. Make sure your destroyer is high enough, and if you are using a really good destroyer like Tashkent, Suzuki, Shimakaze, Udachi, those girls or whatever, you should be okay. Just have a carrier with you that can do somewhat good DPS like a Saratoga or something, and you should be okay. Obviously though, level up ships you guys want, but if you guys are leveling up ships you guys want, it may be a little bit difficult for you to farm. If that's the case, just use whatever you guys want, honestly. That's the most important thing when it comes to event farming. Leveling up ships is the most important thing here. After that, you want to get gear, right? Because obviously D1 and D3 has really good gear. Anyways, without talking much about that, let's talk about the fleets. So I recommend fleet 2 is going to be the mob fleet here, because carrier and destroyer is cheap but gets the job done. Light carriers aren't as tanky as carriers, and D3 is a little bit more challenging compared to D1. So you want to have more durability and more damage coming out from your backline. In this case, a carrier. So I'm using Saratoga. You can use whatever you guys want for carrier. Minus 120 though. I'm not going to show you guys the clips, but this is what I would use. A carrier with a good destroyer. If it's on safe mode, this should be good to go. It really should be good to go. Now, for the boss, it's going to be a little bit more complicated because we have a fixed light carrier slot and we need firepower. So there has to be at least 2 battleships here. Unfortunately, there is. If you guys can use cheap battleships like elites or whatever, go for it. The boss isn't too difficult here. As for the evasion, you're going to need 2 destroyers. Having a extra cast-in or downs at whatever level helps a lot because they're cheap and they also fill in the evasion requirement or whatever. And then just have this one solid either light cruiser or destroyer, whatever requirement you need. As of right now, I don't have them anywhere geared because I'm just throwing out examples for you guys. But for the most part, it's probably going to have to be 2 battleships and probably 2 destroyers and 1 light carrier in the background. The requirements are a little bit more annoying for D3, so keep in mind. Luckily though, I did say you only need about 2 or 3 of these. I wouldn't farm too many of them. So that's why I'm not going to put too much emphasis on D3 because you don't need that many. And if you guys have been playing since the last Skybound Oratorio, you should have 2 of these guns by now. You don't really need more than that. Maybe 3, but you don't need more than that. And one little tip for you guys that are struggling with requirements that may help you guys out. Again, firepower and evasion does mean battleships and destroyers, but you can also minimize this as well too. So firepower, you guys want to equip or make sure you guys equip the best destroyer guns you guys have for stats. Like obviously here I have this gun, Tashkent's gun, 35 firepower. It's one of the highest ones in the game right now. So if you compare this to like say a regular DD guns, for example, like this one right here, it's a 15 firepower difference. Now it may not be a lot, but if you guys are trying to min-max for the requirements to fit or whatever, then having the best gear for that actually helps. As for evasion, again, if you're struggling with evasion, toss on washing machines. 40 evasion flat, very good boost to fitting those requirements. Simple, right? As for the firepower for battleships, because you guys are going to have to use battleships, double shells as always. Or if you guys want to get super complicated, you can do like double black shells to fit more firepower. But try to use a SSR gun because it gives 45 firepower versus the 25 firepower from the usual good HE gun. But again, if you guys don't really, if you guys are meeting the requirements already, you don't have to minimize that much. All you guys have to do is just fit the firepower requirement, and you guys are good to go. Remember, stack firepower, stack evasion, gear contributes to that as well, and you should be okay.